Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
Whether it's the threat of conflict overseas or events happening in the other side of the world, uncertainty about government policies, or the outbreak of a global pandemic, there could always be something, another storm brewing on the horizon. We cannot prevent some of these financial storms from popping up, but what we can do is put strategies in place to navigate around them, and that is our message today. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. And Philip, always a pleasure to sit down with you. I know we've got so much chaos happening all over the world, but I hope right here in your world that all is well with you and your family.
It is, but you're right. There is chaos around the world, and it's impacting all of us, right? And we'll talk about that and more during the show today. But yeah, things are good. Our school systems in the week or so will be on spring break. I've got a daughter and grandbaby coming down to visit for a little bit, so excited about that. And of course, we're in the heat of tax season right now too.
Yeah, there's just a few things going on here.
Plethora of stuff going on.
Oh my gosh, plenty of stuff. Well, let's just spend some time here with the big message for our listeners, because I think you could say, Philip, we are in a very headline-driven market. We are living and making decisions in a world, in a market that is just being driven by headlines from what's going on over with Russia and Ukraine. Those things can have an impact on the decisions that we're making with our money and on our economy over here as well. So what's your message to people who are concerned right now with some of these things that are happening over in Europe?
We know that volatility is going to pop its head up every now and then, and it just looks for a reason. And this Ukraine-Russia event is a reason, right? I mean, it's impacting a lot of different stuff, especially our oil prices. And so, these geopolitical things happen to bring a lot of volatility to the marketplace, especially when we're talking about big countries, right?
Yes.
Russia's
right.
a big powerhouse. And so, they're picking on little old Ukraine over here. And so that becomes a worldwide event that everybody is kind of looking at. And so I think that's a big part of it. But let me just remind people that, when COVID hit in 2020, we thought the world was going to end, right?
Felt like it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the market tanked, but how long did it tank? I mean, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, we were back up and moving forward. Now, I'm not saying that we'll do the same thing today because nobody knows. But we do know that in times like this, we are going to see a lot of volatility, and we need to take that volatility in stride. That's one of the reasons that we developed that core retirement design that we did, to make sure that people have the right amount of risk in their portfolio, which then helps protect them against some of this volatility. So it's we've got the whole geopolitical events, which is causing our oil prices to be a big deal. So now people's emotions get high, right, and start taking over, instead of just sitting down and thinking, okay, what happened the last time we went through a situation like this? And I go back to COVID, not a war, but a war, right, within ourselves. And so I look at that as, hey, look, 5-6 weeks, we were done. Is Russia, Ukraine, is that going to be 5 or 6 weeks and we're done? I don't know. But I do know from history and from living it, because I've walked through 2 major bear markets in 2000 and 2008. And so that really starts to give you some perspective, Jen, on what to look for, how we need to look at things, and
right.
how we need to position ourselves.
Well, and as we think about that, the big thing that's hard to predict when you look at some of these global conflicts, if it will cause temporary economic volatility or long-term downturns, because you have some analysts saying, we'll have a temporary economic impact, but we'll bounce back quickly. You referenced when COVID first broke out, we saw the same kind of thing, but the reality is we don't know what's going to trigger a more long-term downturn or what's going to come from all this. So how do you guide people when you have that many unknowns like that?
Well, I think it goes back to our core retirement design, where we help folks really calculate what their risk number is. What are they comfortable with? And comfortable may not be the right word, but what can they withstand in a downside market in their portfolio? And then making sure that their goals and objectives kind of line up with those things. And then making sure that their current portfolio matches up with that risk number, because that in turn gives them that confidence that they need to know that, hey, I know that things are happening in the marketplace. There's a lot of volatility over here in my risk bucket, but hey, I got the safety bucket over here and it's not moving an inch. So I know that it's protected and it's safe. And that's all about the establishment, right? We establish that optimized risk match portfolio. And that's really the key to everything we do there, is to really put that all together. And so, look, folks, if you're really concerned right now, which a lot of people are because this is an unknown, sit down and let's go through our core retirement design to help you design the retirement you always dreamed of, making sure that the amount of risk you have in your portfolio really and truly lines up with the amount of risk that you can handle in these up and down markets. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815 to go through your core retirement design.
And whether it is, as we talk about some of these things going on here, whether it's the threat of conflict overseas or uncertainty about our government policies over here, or again, the outbreak of a global pandemic, these things can happen. There can always be another storm brewing on the horizon. And the big message for people to know, Philip, is we cannot prevent these things from happening. We can't stop this stuff from unfolding, but what we can do is put strategies in place and work with somebody who can help us navigate around when these big storms blow up.
You're absolutely right, Jen. There are so many factors that can have a negative economic impact. Where you can really run into trouble would be when you're taking withdrawals from your retirement accounts while the market is taking a hit like it is right now. It's a tough spot to be in, because whether the market is up, down, or sideways, you still need income in retirement. You can't just stop buying groceries or stop paying the water bill because your retirement accounts are taking a hit in the markets. Here's how I can help. We can do an analysis to help you uncover the main risk posed threats in your retirement, especially the stock market volatility. We can do a stress test on your retirement plan, really putting your portfolio through an analysis to see just how much it can handle in terms of losses. And then we can start talking about solutions. We can go over some potential moves that you can make to help preserve your life savings from the downside risk. Again, there's no cost and there's no obligation, but it's just for listeners of today's show. Have saved at least $250,000 for retirement. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. Again, that's 863-285-3815. Folks, it's time that you really do a stress test on your retirement savings. When you have the right income strategy in place, you know for certain what's going on with your retirement savings. Global events won't cause you to make panic-based decisions with your money. Again, give us a call at 863-285-3815 to walk through our core retirement design.
And when we talk about some of this uncertainty, we cannot put the next big market drop on the calendar. Nobody knows when something like that will happen or just how bad the losses could potentially be. Like I've been saying, we cannot prevent these financial storms from blowing up, but we can navigate around them if we have the right strategies in place. The number Philip just shared with you again, 863-285-3815. Again, that's 863-285-3815. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Call Philip Statler today to get started on your complimentary financial x-ray report. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Time for today's trivia question. What year was the Dow Jones Industrial Average introduced? Is it A, 1896, or B, 1912? The answer coming up in 60 seconds. Are you near retirement and facing a layoff? You may have some important decisions to make regarding your 401k. If you don't work there, should your money stay? This decision could be critical to your retirement. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services have worked with many families with these types of decisions and understand your options. We can look at the options for your 401k that could save you on taxes down the road. Call Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services and schedule your complimentary 401k review at 863-285-3815. Philip and the team are ready to assist you no matter how, by phone, video, or with an in-person visit. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team today for your 401k review. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Our firm offers insurance services and may not give tax advice. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services Incorporated, a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. What year was the Dow Jones Industrial Average introduced? Is it A, 1896, or B, 1912? The answer is A, 1896. Would you like a second opinion on your retirement portfolio? Contact Philip Statler and Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here alongside Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, talking about taxes here in this part of the show. And so often when we think about taxes, we just think about the chaos that happens during tax season, right? The forms, the deadlines, the scramble to find everything you need. In my house, Philip, it's a big old manila envelope that ends up getting stuffed full of everything. This is just kind of how we handle this.
Poor tax preparer, man.
I know. I try to keep it all in order as best I can, but this isn't what I do for a living. The IRS, they actually send out over 8 billion pages in forms and instructions every year to help people get their taxes filed. It is a lot going on. There's so much to do. And when there's a lot going on, what do we all do? We put it off until the last minute. And that's just not the way to approach this either. But as we talk a little bit about taxes and the fact, Philip, that most of us focus on tax season as when they think about taxes, talk a little bit about the difference between focusing on tax season, getting our taxes done, and tax planning as a concept.
Well, there is a big distinction between the two. And most folks only do the first one, and that's tax preparation. Mostly because we have to, right? We don't have a choice. The government requires us to file a tax return every year. And so that's what everybody focuses on. They want to get that tax return done. They're praying they're going to get a refund. Mm-hmm. And then they move on, and they don't think about it again until next year, when it's time to do the whole thing all over again, get their documents ready, right, go sit down with their preparer and get their taxes done. So that's preparation. Well, tax planning is a whole different ballgame. It's planning for your taxes, right? It's what does my income look like this year? What do my expenses look like this year? What could I do different to help take advantage of my tax situation? I'll give you an example of one of the things that we look at with our clients is they're not going to make much money that year. All they have is, I have several clients in this boat. I mean, they don't have to take their RMDs yet. They're required minimum distributions. They're living off of Social Security and a little bit of dividend income and doing okay, but they got this huge IRA over there. And so now they're sitting here paying zero taxes, not even using their whole standard deduction. And so it's a great time to start like, hey, let's do some Roth conversions. Let's just take money out and put it in non-qualified accounts. let's don't waste this opportunity that we have. So that's one situation, Jen, and I see that more often now than I used to see it. But it's because they raised that standard deduction so high, and so that's one area. The other area we look at now is because we're still in a really low tax brackets historically compared to what they were back in the 70s. And so the question is, when do we think tax rates are going to go up? Who knows? Mm-hmm. My right. Fear is that they're going to go up sooner rather than later.
Right.
Every year, folks need to be making this decision in the planning process. Do I do a Roth conversion? What tax bracket am I going to be in this year? Do I have any room to make a Roth conversion? Or should I be putting money into a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA? These sound like simple questions, but they're planning issues. They're things that we need to know what your income is going to look like for that year before we can really make an intelligent answer to those questions. And so that's the planning process. Preparation, hey, it's done, right? I mean, it's historical. We're looking at what happened last year, not what's going to happen this year. So that I hope that helps folks understand kind of the distinction.
And talk a little bit, Philip, about your history with recognizing the need for tax planning, because as someone who has a background in taxes, you saw the lack of planning that was going on year after year, right?
I did. I mean, back, I'm trying to think how long I've not really had an accounting practice of my own. So it's been 20 years now, 25 years. But that's what got me into doing financial planning, investment management, is because when I would sit down with folks, they weren't preparing. And when they would go to the financial advisor, they weren't getting any advice on that side either. So that really got us going, and where we would do a lot of tax planning as well as income planning and other areas of that whole spectrum of planning for retirement when it comes to taxes, because I've been doing taxes for over 30 years. And so it's an area that I understand and know some of the consequences of not planning and helping people plan the right way for the retirement they're going to have. So that's my whole background. When I graduated, I got a degree not only in accounting, but also in finance, because I love the investment side of everything. And so that really catapulted me into this industry back in the mid-90s.
Philip, talk a little bit about, if we want to have some of these conversations with you, getting into some of the opportunities right now for tax planning. How do we reach you, and what does this look like?
So it's easy to get a hold of us. They can give us a call, 863-285-3815. They can even go to our website at statlerfinancial.com. There's a link to my calendar there. They can schedule a financial x-ray. They can schedule a 15-minute phone call, whatever they're more comfortable with to initially get started. I would just say do something to get started. Don't procrastinate any longer when it comes to your retirement and doing the tax planning that needs to be done going forward. So again, that number is 863-285-3815 or my website, statlerfinancial.com.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. I am Jen Rezac alongside Philip. I think we all pretty much understand how things like income taxes work during our working years. Talk a little bit about how this changes when we get to retirement and we're no longer earning a paycheck. It doesn't mean that income taxes and those types of things go away. It's just taken care of a little bit differently. Talk a little bit about how that changes, and the fact that this is the first time that we actually have a little bit more control over things like that.
It is, Jen, and you say that, and I almost start laughing because I can't tell you, I get a couple calls every year. Philip, hey, I retired this year, so I'm thinking that this coming year, I'm not going to have to pay any taxes. That may be true, But more often than not, it's not true. It's a different way, right? Because they're taking money out of their IRAs, or they're taking money from a pension. They're getting Social Security. They think all their Social Security is tax-free money. And that's not the case. It could be, but your Social Security may end up being taxable income if your other income is too high. And it becomes a convoluted discussion, which requires a whiteboard and a computer screen to really make sense of it all. But believe me when I tell you that your Social Security could be taxable anywhere from 0% to 85% of your Social Security could end up being taxable. And that just throws people for a loop because they haven't planned for that. And so that really messes them up, because now all of a sudden they've taken a large chunk out of their IRA, and now they have to write a big check because a lot of their Social Security becomes taxable. So that's where the planning comes into. I tell my clients, look, if you need money, that's fine. Just tell me what you need so I can figure out the best place for you to take it from a tax standpoint. Let's look at it from a tax standpoint and a financial standpoint. Let's just don't go take it out of one place and cause us to have to pay more in taxes. And so, clients appreciate that because they have various pots of money. And that's one of the things that they need to look at is where should I take it from? And I think it's one thing also, Jen, that really creates some differential between us and other firms out there. I mean, go to one of the major wirehouses or one of the major firms and say, okay, look, I need $20,000. I have a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, and a non-qualified account. Which account should I take it from? And they're going to say, we can't tell you. That's a problem when you're sitting there trying to determine, I need money. Where do I take it from? That's where I think we add value to our relationship, because we understand the inner workings of taxes and how that plays a big role in retirement. And we don't want people to pay more than what they have to. Sometimes it's a necessary evil that we have to do, but we don't want people to pay more than what they have to, Jen.
Right, exactly. But we have to do something about it. It's not going to happen by accident. Talk a little bit about how we can learn about existing opportunities, because that's the other thing we need to realize. As much as we complain about what's going on with taxes right now, they're actually at a pretty low point. I think they're lower than they have been in a number of decades. How do we learn about existing opportunities to save on taxes before those tax laws change again? Probably will at some point under the Biden administration.
Well, that's true, Jen. At this point, right, folks, we have an opportunity till 2025. 2025, the Trump tax changes will expire, and we'll go back to where we were before this tax law was passed. That's if, the current administration doesn't come in and change things before that. So every year has question marks. So, but right now we know that we have 2021 that we can work with. And so it's a great opportunity to sit down and see what opportunities are available to you. Should I do a Roth conversion? Should I take my RMD and buy life insurance? What opportunities are out there that could enhance my net worth, could enhance what I give to my beneficiaries or to the charities of my choice? What's going to help put me in a lower tax bracket down the road? Folks, these are all things that we can answer today by starting that process. All you have to do, give us a call at 863-285-3815. That number again is 863-285-3815. Or again, you can go to our website at statlerfinancial.com. There's a lot of these radio shows are there, as well as a link to my calendar. You can schedule a 15-minute phone call. We can have a conversation about things that are important to you. You can schedule a financial x-ray where we can get together and actually analyze your portfolio to determine how much risk you have. So a lot of things available. All you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815. 3815 to get that process started.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
If you have a retirement plan and would like a second opinion, call Statler Financial Services today. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
From the pitch, swung at a little too soon.
Strike three, you're out.
To the joke told at the wrong time. To barely missing your connecting flight.
This is the final boarding call for Flight 109 to Chicago.
Timing is everything. The same is true for your Social Security benefits. Take them too soon and you could leave a lot of money on the table. Take them too late and you might spend down too much of your savings. Everybody's situation can be different, but taking your Social Security benefits at the right time is important for your retirement success. Philip Statler at Statler Financial understands Social Security and can help you make decisions that are best for you and your retirement dreams. Call 863-285-3815 to start optimizing your benefits. With Social Security, timing is everything, so don't delay. Call Philip Statler at Statler Financial today. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Our firm offers insurance services and is not affiliated with the U.S. government. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here alongside Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. He is the inaugural Highlander Award winner for Financial Representative of the Year. Talking today about taxes and the fact that far too often we only think about taxes during tax season, but it's really during the off season that we need to be thinking about all this stuff. I mean, we can make those analogies or those comparisons, Philip, to different sports. My kids aren't going to be going to the Olympics, I don't think, for anything that they do, but my daughters who are runners, they are doing training in the off season. They're running with their team even when it's not cross country season or track season. My boys who play baseball, they go to batting practice when it's not baseball season. So my kids get it. This is how this happens with sports. Why do so many people not take a similar approach when it comes to their finances and things like taxes and think about them in the off season?
Well, I'm going to say probably the number one reason that folks don't do it is they don't think about it, right? They don't think about what they need to be looking at going forward. Mm-hmm. They're more concerned about filing and taking care of that past historical stuff. The second reason that's out there is they have a budgetary issue. They don't want to pay for it, right? It's not free. You have to sit down with a tax professional. You have to lay out what you're trying to accomplish. And you probably got to find a tax professional that has some investment savvy to them to get you through that. Or you need to work with a financial advisor that has the tax experience that they can help you walk through that process. And so that's the reason people miss out is because they don't think about it. They don't want to pay for it. And their current financial advisor can't give them advice on it. So those are the top three reasons it doesn't happen.
Right. But it's so important that we think about it and we don't procrastinate here. Talk a little bit about, Philip, as we talk about being proactive when it comes to tax planning, thinking about these things in the off season, what all goes into creating a tax efficient strategy for your retirement?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, because typically when people retire, the majority of their money is going to be in a 401k. Maybe a profit sharing plan, but typically it's going to be 401k money or other IRAs that they've had 401ks rolled into over the years. And so that's a tax explosion fixing to happen. And so, we need to find ways before folks, ideally before people retire, if not, at least those first couple of years after they retire, find ways that we can take that IRA and make it less intrusive from a tax standpoint. Whether that's, hey, I need to start taking some money out of it and just put it in a non-qualified account, which then we have to pay tax on the dividends and the capital gains, but that may be okay. Or do I start doing Roth conversions? I mean, there's a lot of different things we need to step through And everything's going to be different depending upon your circumstances. What tax bracket you're in, how much you have in these accounts, what your other income looks like outside of what's in your IRA. There are so many components to making the right calculations to determine what is that going to look like for you. Not to mention, you throw in the Affordable Care Act, and that can just totally throw off all your calculations. So it's not something that's cut and dry, easy to look at and say, okay, this is what I can do. Because a lot of folks are retiring and they're not 65 yet. So that means they're not on Medicare. So that means a lot of them, if they don't have company provided health insurance, they have affordable care insurance, which means they're getting these credits. That's income based. So that all figures into what can I do? Because a Roth conversion or taking money out of that IRA, that's going to jack up our income, Jen, and that can cause some people some big headaches that they don't anticipate.
Right. And it's just one of those things. It's important for us to understand that we need to be tax efficient because taxes can eat away at what we've worked so hard to save. It can leave us with a fraction of what we were counting on. And this is not just pocket change slipping through the cracks. Just talk a little bit about the impact on your lifestyle later on in retirement if you don't do something about taxes down the road.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the things that always gets me, I'm part of Ed Slott's Master Elite IRA program. We get together a couple times a year just to get updated on tax laws and IRA rules and that kind of stuff. But one of the things he always says, Jen, is that, you have an IRA, but it's not all yours.
Right.
You share ownership. There's a mortgage on your IRA. And it comes due every time you take money out of your IRA. Uncle Sam's sitting there with his hands out. He wants his part. And if you think about it, it only takes one mistake. Hey, I'm going to buy a car. I'm going to take that money out of my IRA. Now you've got this huge tax bill that you weren't counting on because you didn't think through the whole process of what that means. That's why I think it's so important that folks look to see where are they taking money from? And let's be tax efficient with our distributions, because what could we do? Well, you could do a Roth conversion. Now, folks, listen, a Roth conversion is not free from taxes. The idea of the Roth conversion is you're paying tax at the low rates we see today so that we don't have to pay tax at the high rates that we think we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years. So there is a tax consequence when you do that Roth conversion. Or if you do what they call an investment quality life insurance policy, where we invest in a life insurance policy to give somebody a tax-free death benefit down the road. That's the way a lot of folks will enhance their net worth to give tax-free benefits to their children down the road. And there's a lot of things out there. But which one's going to work for you, and how do you plan for the tax liability that's going to come along with it? Do you have some losses that can help offset it? Do you have additional withholding taken out of one of your pensions or your paycheck? Because now we could have higher taxes on our Social Security benefits. And then something that most people don't even realize can happen to you, Jen, is your Medicare premiums can go up if your income is too high.
Wow.
And people get blown away because I'll get a phone call. Why did my Medicare premiums go up? Well, you remember that big chunk you took out of your IRA because you wanted to buy a new house? You didn't think much of it. You went ahead and paid the tax. Well, that's all income. And so now your Medicare premium doubled. Or it could have tripled, depending upon how high your income is. So that can be really, hit you from behind and not realize that added expense just because you took some money from the wrong place or didn't think through the whole process properly.
It's just one of those things where it does help to get a little guidance. It is hard for all of us to think through all of those steps and understand the tax consequences of every decision that we make, because these things, there's kind of a domino effect here, or there could be, Philip, when we're thinking about the money that we need for retirement, where we're getting it from, how all of this can have an impact on our taxes down the road. It just pays to get a little bit of help on this so we don't make a costly mistake with our life savings, right?
That's right. I mean, a lot of times it's structure. How do we structure what we want to do? And so I can't tell you, I do this several times throughout the year. I'll have a client call and say, hey, look, I need this. I'm going to buy a new car. That's a good example. Or I'm going to buy a house in the mountains, right? So I want to take money out and do that. Sometimes, folks, it's better to be not debt-free because of the tax consequences. So can we pay for that car in 2 years instead of 5 years, right? And so we're not going to pay a whole lot of interest, but by breaking up that tax payment over 2 years, now it lowers our tax liability, maybe even puts us in a whole different tax bracket. Same thing with the house. I've done this with several clients. We've had this issue. And so it's structure. It's knowing how to structure things so that they're tax efficient. And that's really and truly the key. There's just not a lot of folks out there that will help you through that process the way we will here at Statler Financial, is walking you through and making sure that what you do is as tax efficient as it can be. And I understand there's times that, hey, we got to do what we got to do, and it's going to cost us some tax dollars. But I'm going to be your sounding board. I'm going to be that person that says, here's other ways you could do what you're trying to do that could possibly lower your tax burden in the process. Let's take the time to research and investigate what's the best way for you to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish from a tax standpoint and from a financial standpoint. The two things are intertwined so much that you can't think of one without thinking of the other. And that's where people really and truly end up with an issue. They think, I need this money out of my 401k for this, and they don't even think about the tax consequences that come along with it. Folks, that's where we come in. We'd love to help walk you through that whole process of what that looks like for you, because there's several things that can rob you in retirement. Taxes is one of them. Inflation's another one. And risk in your portfolio is a third one. The stock market can evaporate your retirement income if not planned for properly. So give us a call, 863-285-3815. That number again is 863-285-3815. Let me help you put together a tax efficient plan. Be here for you when you have those questions that need the research, need the strategies, need the structures in place so that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish as tax efficiently as possible. Give me a call, 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Are you near retirement and facing a layoff? You may have some important decisions to make regarding your 401k. If you don't work there, should your money stay? This decision could be critical to your retirement. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services have worked with many families with these types of decisions and understand your options. We can look at the options for your 401k that could save you on taxes down the road. Call Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services and schedule your complimentary 401k review at 863-285-3815. Philip and the team are ready to assist you no matter how, by phone, video, or with an in-person visit. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team today for your 401k review. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Our firm offers insurance services and may not give tax advice. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services Incorporated, a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services right here in Sebring. Every week he gets questions about all things retirement, so we're going to take a little time here in this part of the show, open up our Statler Financial mailbag, and go over some common retirement questions. So, Philip, our first question is from Jill, and Jill writes that she and her husband are getting a divorce after being married for almost 30 years. She's been working outside of the home for the last 5 years, so she's got some work friends and a little income of her own, but she feels like she's just starting over and she doesn't even know the questions to ask first. She wants to know some of the things she should think about now that she's planning for her own future.
Well, that's a tough question, Jill.
Yeah.
You need to know, number one, if you're working, if you have a 401k plan, then we need to be making sure that we're making some contributions to that 401k plan. Now, obviously, I'm not an attorney, but an area that you need to at least ask your attorney about is if your spouse has some retirement accounts, can you have access to some of that? Right? Can you roll some of that into your IRA? That's an area, because that may be, after 30 years of marriage, that may be one of the bigger financial assets that you have is going to be his retirement accounts. So we want to look at that and see if there may be something there that you can grasp and at least help you get started in the right direction and have some assets there to fall back on. But again, if you have a 401k, let's make sure that we're contributing at least enough to get the full match on that part. If there's not a 401k, try to develop some kind of savings plan where you're putting money into a Roth IRA, because you'd rather pay the taxes now in the low tax environment we're in versus later when we may be in a higher tax environment. Those are probably a couple things that I would look at right now.
Good questions there, Jill. And that really has become more of an issue that retirement planners like you are dealing with now. I know those divorce rates among people who are getting close to retirement and who are in retirement has really gone up. And there's some big financial ramifications. So just, Jill, you're certainly not the only one who's going through this. So those are some good questions there. Our next question is from Mark, and he and his wife have started having some serious discussions about what they want to do in retirement. Mark has had to travel for work for years, so he wants some peace and quiet, and he wants to go fishing. But his wife stayed home to raise their 2 boys. She's been telling all her friends about all the places that they're going to go once they retire, so they have some different ideas here. Mark says he's done traveling for good, but doesn't know how to tell her. So now what? So how do we make everybody happy here, Philip? This is a tough situation.
I didn't know that I was going into the marriage counseling business here, Jen.
It's kind of where you are sometimes, right? Oh gosh,
it is, and I can understand both sides. And so I think that there needs to be a discussion, right? We need to sit down and have that discussion about what we expect, and so maybe it's not all or nothing, right? So maybe we travel together once a year, and maybe the rest of the time, she goes ahead and kind of sets up some of the things she wants to do, and he can stay at home and golf or piddle in the yard or whatever he wants to do in retirement. And who knows, a couple of years of doing that, and he may get on that train of, okay, I'm ready to travel again and do some other stuff.
Right.
But, yeah, I think it's having that conversation of what can we do together, and then what do we need to not do together.
And, and I think as long as there's some planning and some discussions there, he can certainly have his own hobbies and they can create a budget for some of that travel. My girlfriends and I, we went without our husbands and had a 40th birthday celebration, all of us together, and it was fun. So maybe she can do some of those things, but you just got to have those money conversations for do we have the money for her to do some of these trips, and then he's got the money for his hobbies, and then they can switch that that up down the road if they need to, right?
Yep. It's all about compromise.
Compromise and keep those planning conversations going, because we might change our minds here one of these days. All right. Next question is from Paul. He wants to know the best kind of annuity to buy. Paul says he doesn't want a bunch of stuff. He just wants one simple place to keep his money.
Paul, I'd love to say here's a simple answer. Unfortunately, your question doesn't allow a simple answer. There's a lot of different annuities out there. There's not a best annuity. Okay. It's all based on your circumstances, your situation. I will say this though, you don't want to put all your money into an annuity. That I do know. There's some planning that needs to be done there, Paul. And so it's sitting down with us or another financial advisor and really and truly looking at where you are and what you want your money to do for you going forward. Whether that means we need additional income, we can put together an income plan, or whether we don't really need any more income, we just need some fun money and stuff like that to budget for the fun stuff we want to do in retirement. Those are all things that we can address, but there's not one best annuity to go buy. It all depends on your circumstances. Don't let anybody tell you that there's this one great annuity that's the best annuity out there, because it all depends on you, your circumstances, and what you're trying to accomplish. Unfortunately, that's about the best advice I can give you on that.
Right, right. And, I think that's another area almost where there's compromise, Philip, because I think what Paul is looking for is a little bit of simplicity, and I can appreciate that. Sometimes, Philip, you might sit down with somebody who just tries to make everything out to be too complicated and too complex. And really, that's kind of where you fall. You want it to be simple for people. It's not rocket science. They need to be able to understand it without overcomplicating it, but just recognizing that too simple is kind of a bit of a danger zone too, right?
It is. So we want to make sure that we use the right tools for your circumstances, right? And so what you're telling me is you want simple, and I get that, but we also need to be careful in how we arrange things, because we don't know what tomorrow holds. You might need your money quickly, or at least some of it. And so it's a planning process. And I think that I understand you want to keep things simple, and I get that. And there is simple, but it still takes planning. And you need to have a plan in place, which is what I think is really important in your circumstances.
Yeah, great question, Paul. And again, I think with some of these things, also, it just never hurts to get that second opinion before you get something like an annuity or not. Just good to have that second opinion, right, Philip?
That, and just understanding what you're buying, right? Because it's a product. It has good things, it has bad things, so you need to draw the T account and make sure you understand the pros and the cons of what you're looking at, and make sure you're using somebody that's not just an annuity salesman, because then the only tool they have is an annuity.
Right.
So you know what you're going to get. That doesn't give you an open-minded person that's going to look at your situation and say, here, based on your situation, here's the best thing for you.
Right.
That's not going to happen if you go to an annuity person.
Right.
It's not going to happen if you go to a brokerage firm. You really and truly need to work with somebody that has a fiduciary responsibility to do what's in your best interest. And that's the key, I think, in getting the right mix of investments that you're going to need in retirement.
And that, Philip, is where we get that phrase when we've talked before about how when you only have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And that's what we run into financially sometimes with just the same tool over and over again. Let's do one more question here. This last one comes from Barb. Another tough relationship situation. Barb says, my mother just died, and now I feel like all our family does is argue over what to do with her house and who will be in charge of what. My siblings and I are in our 60s, but it feels like we're kids again. I don't know if you can help us with our arguments, but can you please just tell people why it's so important to take care of these decisions ahead of time? Gosh, that's a tough thing to be in, but she's right. We got to take care of this stuff ahead of time, right?
We do. And so, so there's a couple things here, right? So if mom died without a will, that's a problem, right? And so the courts are really going to be in charge of how things are then divided up. If mom died with a will, the will is going to specify the things she's asking about. Who's in charge? Well, the will is going to say who's in charge. The will is going to say, here's how everything gets divided. So not having that in place can be problematic for the family. And so you don't want to put your family in that situation. You want to at least have a will in place. You want to at least have a power of attorney in place so that somebody can take care of you if you can't take care of yourself. If you have enough assets and you're in a position, maybe you need a trust. I don't know, without looking at your situation. Not everybody needs a trust. More people have a trust than really need one from what I've seen. But there are advantages to having a trust. There could be some advantages of not having a trust, depending on your circumstances. And so that's one of those things that is very dependent upon where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish. You're in a rough spot here because you got siblings all scrabbling over stuff, and that's not good. Mom died, and now we're fighting over everything. So it's better, folks. Listen, if you don't have a will in place or you haven't attached beneficiaries to your assets, that's why they create TOD, transfer on death, or POD, pay on death, so that you can don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. It's taken care of. You've done it ahead of time. So those are some areas I think that you could look at. Obviously, it's too late for you, but a heads up to folks out there that, right, hey, take care of your stuff now so that your kids don't fight over it later. Right? That's not what you want to have happen. And again, I'm not an attorney, but you need to have a relationship with an attorney that can help you set these things up properly, and to make sure that your final wishes are carried out the way you want them to be. Right. Because who wants their kids fighting over stuff? Nobody does.
Yeah.
But they're doing it. Happens. That's right. And they're doing it because you didn't take action to prevent it. And you could have.
So Philip, I think that the big message for a lot of people here is just get that planning done. So tell us how we can get in touch with somebody like you to get started on identifying what all the weak spots are and what's going on with our money, what's missing, and how do we get everything in place so we don't leave a mess for our kids.
Absolutely, Jen. They can give us a call. I mean, it's something we do all the time for folks is walk them through that process. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. It's 863-285-3815. Or, Jen, they can go to my website, statlerfinancial.com. There's a link to my calendar right there.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. That's all the time we have for this week, but be sure to tune in again next time for more insights from Philip. We'll talk to you then.
Call Philip Statler today to get started on your complimentary financial X-ray report. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.